Today I will be talking about the questions that arose from my last video on succession planning. One of the most common questions that was asked by several people is whether the will that is created by a person for his succession planning, whether that will requires a probate or not. The answer to this question is yes and no. If you talk about the mandate, then yes, there are certain cities in the country where taking probate of a will is mandatory. But there are certain areas or parts of the country where a probate is not mandatory in case of a will. It is very important to note that you will require to use your probate for the transfer of properties. Therefore, the court probate gives you the authenticity for the will. Another question that has been asked is whether a will is required to be registered. Now, a will may not be registered, but a registered will gives the authenticity. A will may get challenged by several of the legal heirs. Therefore, to have a registered will gives the authenticity for the will. Another question that has been asked is kindly elaborate on the process of succession possible through a private trust. Now, let me talk about a private trust, what it is really. A private trust is basically an instrument, a trust deed which is created by the settler of a trust who has certain properties and he wants to administer his properties and give it to the heirs or to the specific heirs that he wants. Now, in this situation, he creates a document which is the trust deed, which spells out all the terms and conditions, the way the trust is to function, who will be the trustees, who will be administering the properties, and the beneficiaries of this trust. A trust can be a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. A settler, if he wants to change or keep on changing or cancelling a trust, it can be made an revocable trust, but an irrevocable trust is one where trust once created will not be altered and it will remain and the terms and conditions will be the same. This is much more authentic to have a irrevocable trust. The other type is whether the trust is a specific trust or a discretionary trust. This is very important because in a specific trust, the beneficiaries are defined. How much percentage each beneficiary will be given is also known. But in a discretionary, it changes and the trustees are given the authority to spell out who will be the beneficiary and how much they will be getting. Now the question may arise that which is better, the trust route or to make a will? There are certain advantages of a trust, there are certain advantages of a will. Like if you are creating a trust, then you are actually able to administer the property in your lifetime itself. You create a trust instrument and you register your properties in the name of the trust and you disclose the beneficiaries so that in course of time the beneficiaries acquire these properties. A will takes shape only after the death of a concerned person. The second major advantage of a trust is that a trust does not require a probate. Therefore, a trust can easily be created by making a trust deed and having it registered. Again, as I said, registration is important because that gives authenticity to the trust document. A will always require a probate to give it authenticity, and this probate has to be taken from the court, and as a result, the process of taking the probate can be long and could be making your documents public as well. Therefore, from the privacy point of view, a private trust is much more private than a will, which almost becomes a public document when the probate is taken. These are some of the advantages and disadvantages of having a private trust and doing the succession through a private trust instead of a will. Which will be more appropriate for you will depend on the circumstances and your decision. I hope this short video is of use to you. Thank you.